Let's see if we're going live. Is it popping up? Yeah, we're live. Hello, you're watching Tech Flashback, a PC gaming and hardware news live show focused on the biggest stories of the week. As usual, I'm joined by my guest, Jerry of Top 3 Entertainment, and today we got a lot of GPU news to cover. And I'm sure Jerry's been having a very good day taking a look at 4090 reviews. I need to catch up to the correct generation, just make sure we're there, but yeah, it's been a very busy day for reviews. But before we get into it, how are you doing, Jerry?
Pretty good. My coworker finally showed up back to work, so I have tonight
Nice.
off. Hell yeah,
Sweet.
hell yeah. So that's nice.
So what are you gonna do
Um,
with your night off?
hang out with the wife.
Nice. That's good. That's a good idea.
What about you?
But,
What you been up to? How you doing?
not too bad. I'm currently on my week off at the moment, so I've been trying to
Oh
get
no.
to work on some video stuff. Um, Also was trying to get my car sorted for its MOT. Uh, I don't know what it's called in the US, but do you have? I'm guessing you have some sort of like yearly service thing you need to do to like pass a test for your car. I don't know what it would be called though.
Um,
To make sure your
Not really.
car's
You just
roadworthy. I mean,
now you don't really do that around here. I guess maybe check your smog every once in a while, every couple of years, but depending on the state.
oh
Um,
okay.
all you do, all you do yearly is just pay your tabs on your license plates.
Ah, okay. Well, in the UK, we've got an MOT where you have to have your car checked to make sure it's safe to drive, essentially. And mine failed, so it's not a good start. Um, so I got to
What
take
was
it
wrong with
back.
your car?
Uh, there was a leak in the exhaust, so it failed on the
Oh,
emissions
okay.
because of that. So I got to take it back tomorrow, and either they can get it patched up, or I may have to have something replaced on it. But we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, it won't be too expensive, but we'll see how it happens. So that was the start of
I
the
hope it's
week,
not
and
too
then I hope it's not too expensive. I want to buy motherboards and stuff, but I might not be
4090.
able to. It might be too expensive for motherboards now.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you guys want to help out with the MOT cost, then feel free to leave a super chat or whatever. But besides that, not much really. Just been playing a bit of Hades and chilling out really, and then planning wedding stuff as usual. But no, I've just been looking forward to having a chat with yourself, Jerry, and with the rest of the usuals in the chat who'd like to pop up because we got a few new people that are like popping by from last week's stream because the OC stream kind of like it picked up quite a lot. It was probably it's the biggest stream I've done on the channel, so it's
Yes,
quite cool
sir.
to see a new surge of people popping in. Including Lucky Man, who's sitting back with a coffee. He's one of the new guys that popped in, so welcome to the stream. And yeah, it's alright though. And again, like a big shout out to Jerry for doing such an excellent job moderating that stream because the spam bots were in full force that night. But that was a fun stream. Um, I want to do another overclocking stream. I don't know what it'll be either. But did very well with the 5600G, and we only had one crash. So that's
Yep.
pretty good going over like 2 hours or so.
And that's because you pushed it all crazy too. You didn't want to inch it at the end right there.
Mm. Maybe we could have messed around a little further with our load line calibration to keep it a little bit more stable, but I was like, once I got it down to 1.325 volts, we were matching the same power draw and thermals at stock, and we're getting increased performance on our multi-threaded workload. So I'd take that as a win. So, and it's all practice as well for when we do another overclocking stream of some kind anyway. But it was fun either way. It's nice to see new people popping up. Lucky Man's picked up on this as well. So he failed his. Oh, I failed my own MOT. Nurse said I had bad emissions. Oh, okay, right. That might be a slightly different MOT then, but sorry to hear that. but
Sounds like you're not
no,
a lucky man that night.
no, not too much. Tell you what, I did do last night. I caught up on House of the Dragon, which we can't get into spoiler territory quite yet because we did promise we'd wait until the series ends and then we'll have like we might go on for quite a long time when we finish like the series and talking. We'll have to have like a full on stream talking about it. Uh, but I enjoyed last night's episode. It was pretty good. Without spoiling anything for anyone
Pretty
in the chat, you know.
pretty good. Pretty good.
But
Does anyone here in the chat watch it? That'd be pretty interesting. All I could say is King Viserys and Daemon are my favorite characters. They're the goats. They
hmm.
really carry on the series and especially that episode.
this isn't a spoiler, but there's a bit in the last night's episode specifically. Uh, Not a spoiler, but the crown falls off King Viserys' head at one point, and Daemon puts it back on. That was not scripted. Did you know that?
Yeah, yeah, I saw that after the episode, and they just kept
That
rolling.
was cool. That was so good. It was like they must have saw it. I was like, no, keep
Yeah,
going. Let's go. Let's go.
yeah. No, we can't waste film, even though it's all digital.
Oh yeah, like that's one of those magic moments that like you could never like catch if it didn't happen like at the time. But no, it was a good episode. But we've only got 2 episodes until the finale. Is that
Yeah,
correct? Yeah.
and
Yeah. So we'll have
it's
to have a
pretty much
dedicated stream looking at it though. I think.
yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, technically, it's tech. It's a show. They have a bunch of tech on there, even though it's a show about back in the day.
Oh yeah,
Because
that's it.
a
Well, yeah.
dragon
There's
would be a
the
technological.
the Welsh flag for my country has a dragon on it, so it's vaguely reminiscent of that, you know. So there we go. But no, so Lucky Man hasn't watched it yet though. But I think there may be some people in the Discord that do watch it as well. So we won't spoil anything, but we will have a dedicated like chat about it once the series has finished though. But what have you been up to, Jerry? Anyway, I know you've just finished up with your 6800 XT review from last week. And I think you said you may be having a bit of a breather this week. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to be full hands on deck tomorrow morning. I think it comes out at 6 a.m. The 4090 comes out at 6 a.m. tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm just gonna try to get a 4090, if not the Arc. And so I just figured I might as well take it easy since that's probably gonna take a while to figure out. So take
I
a
mean,
break
mashing
before,
F5 all day.
yeah, before I go on to the next gen. I'm pretty excited. We'll be talking about it a little bit more today.
Oh yeah, we got a lot to
Uh,
talk about with GPUs today. You
I feel like
you got you kind of hopeful? You reckon you'll get your hands on something?
I believe so. If anything, probably the most expensive one because that'll sell last. But I don't know if I'm gonna try to get an AIB or the Founders Edition. The Founders Edition will sell quickly, so I might try to get a gigabyte one because I feel like that'd be the least popular, and so people will try to get that one last.
Okay,
But we'll see.
that's cool. Well, obviously we got quite a lot to get into for the stream, so we will get to the 4090s later on. But before we get into some of the topics, because like we got quite a lot to discuss, I feel like we should get into it pretty soon. Uh, if you're not getting an upload up for this week, but you got anything else you'd want to plug before we get started on the show? You're going to any streaming this week?
Yeah. Later on today, I'll try to play Overwatch again. Last week I tried to play. I was just stuck in waiting queues the whole time. Ended
I
up
thought you'd
playing
been
Call of Duty
banned.
and Halo. Yeah, and I got banned once I did get in the server, so that was that. So I'm gonna try it again today. Hopefully, I'm not banned. But I think I was probably the fastest anyone's ever gotten banned in Overwatch, so that's nice.
You got that record for yourself, I think. That's
Yes,
not too
sir.
bad. Yeah, come on. We got a lot to get into. Why don't we get like let's start out with the most disappointing topic first, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Now, I think it was only last week we spent quite a lot of time discussing X670 and Ryzen 7000 in particular, because the pricing on X670 is basically ass, if we're being totally honest. And as we were hoping B650 would change that, but not at all. It's been, frankly, like extremely disappointing when it came to the B650's launch, and also a very big lack of content regarding it compared to usual. I haven't seen many people posting reviews of any B650 boards, any builds with B650. Uh, have you seen much pop up on your end, Jerry?
No, I haven't really seen any. I haven't looked at it either, but normally it would pop up in my feed. But yeah, nothing too crazy so far. But
But
at the same
despite
time,
the,
I
sorry, go
haven't
on.
really been looking for it. So there's that too. Got to give that disclaimer.
Yeah, that's it. But well, TechLab just brought it up on here now. He's saying price on B650 is ass as well. So I
Here
think
comes
we,
the
we
boss.
all we all understand that, but I couldn't believe how bad it is. It's almost like I think we had the same thing last week with when we were looking at the like rumored pricing, being along the same lines as X670. Which at that point, wouldn't you just get an X670 board?
Yeah, I
But
think they're saying that they're doing that intentionally. So as of now, people could buy the X670 boards, and then eventually they'll probably price cut these a little more.
could be that perhaps. But like, especially with Ryzen CPUs still like being so widely available, 7000 series specifically, I just feel like AMD has missed the mark on this launch completely. And until prices come down, I think it's not going to be very telling whether people are actually interested in this generation as a whole. But what I thought we could do, and I think you're going to try and load up some US pricing on your end, is take a look at B650 pricing in the UK as well on Scan's website, and then you're going to have a look on Newegg or something, is it? For your end, Jerry, is it?
I put
Um,
Newegg.
okay. Well, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the cheapest ones we can find so far?
Sure. Let's see. Lowest price. Mine was just on featured items, but too low. Okay, I gotta go back to featured.
Well, for the UK,
Yeah.
the cheapest one I can see so far is the Asus Prime B650 Plus, and that's £209. Um,
Mm, on here I have a ASRock B650 and PG Riptide for 170.
okay. Any idea what that would be, including tax on top of that? 'Cause that's obviously in the
Uh,
UK we don't have that issue. It's kind of it's that is the price over here. So
okay. Let's just say 180. Tax is like 10%.
okay, so pretty close. Do they have the which
I
ASRock
don't.
one did you say it was?
The PG, the Phantom Gaming Riptide. It's a micro ATX.
I'll pop it up on Scamber here. It might be on a different UK retailer, but I'm not seeing it on here for now though. But so we're looking at those as all like the more budget end. But even this Asus Prime B650M A Wi-Fi, the micro ATX one, is the exact same price, which is a little unusual considering you're dropping some features when you drop down to micro ATX anyway. So not great,
Yeah.
really. Um, any picking your attention that you're curious to take a look at, Jerry, and I'll see if I can find them on my end as well.
Let's see. What would probably be okay, you know what? Let's look at the Asus Tough Gaming B650 Plus Wi-Fi socket. The AM5. Do you have that over there?
The ATX
The
one, yeah,
tough.
that's it.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
I got that here.
It's at 240. My X570 Tough Gaming was $200 brand new, and when I bundled it with the CPU when I got the 3600, they took off $20. So I pretty much got it for like 180.
That's pretty good
So,
going.
yeah, considering that was a budget X570, this is like about $60 more, and this is supposed to be their lower tier. Well, you know their budget cards, not even the X670. It's pretty crazy where they've gone from here. What motherboard do you have currently, like in your PC?
So in my main rig, I've got an MSI B450 Pro Carbon.
Do they
Um,
have the Pro Carbon listed on here?
oh,
The
I
B650
think
or
they do. It was very saddening to see. Let me try and find it on here. They got the Tomahawk. Oh, here
okay,
we
all
go.
right.
Whew.
They have it here for pre-order.
The Carbon.
Yeah, the MSI MPG B650 Carbon Wi-Fi.
I've got it in front of me now. So what? How much is it going for on your end?
It's 329, but right now if you pre-order it, you get a $10 rebate card. So it comes out to
Ooh.
320, and then with taxes it'll be 350.
Do you want the UK price for that one?
Sure.
It's 370.
370. About the same. Minus the $10 gift card, it runs about to the same thing.
But the thing is, for that, I'm pretty certain you can get. Let's have a look. A low end X670 board for maybe even less than that.
Yeah, and let's see.
Yeah,
They have the X
you can get the Asus Prime X670p for £300. So
the
why would you
Prime.
go for the? Oh god.
Let's see. The Steel Legend is 299. the X670E. It's even the E version too. Let's see.
And
So
they're the
what we
more bare
say it
bones
was.
versions, really, isn't it?
Yeah, we said what it was 360. Let's see if I can find out. These are all ASRock. I'm trying to see if I can find an MSI, the MSI version for it. See how much that is. I can't
Well, while you're
find
looking at
it.
that one, the one I thought I'd just bring up on here was the one I was actually contemplating for myself, which I'm pretty sure I will not be looking at anytime soon. I was contemplating the Gigabyte B650 EORS Master for an upgrade,
Yeah.
but it's going for £440 in the UK, which is absolutely absurd for a B series motherboard.
That's
Oh,
the B series?
yeah, it's the B650 Aorus Master for £440.
Jeez. Let me see how much. That's the Elite. The Master's 350 here. That's the B650E,
Yeah, that's it.
the Aorus Master, and then the X670E is 500. So you save about $150 if you go to the B650, which I guess this is a bargain. There's some budget there.
Oh, it's just
Yeah,
so
yeah.
horrible. Um, I won't look at too many of the pricings on those, but like the gist is that I don't know what AMD's smoking. If we're being totally
Yeah, it's
honest,
crazy.
oh, it's just it's a bit more justifiable for the more higher end CPUs like the 7900X and 7950X, but considering the lowest end motherboard you could pair with a 7600X is still pushing over £200 or dollars. Well, so you say about $180 for one there, but even still, like, does AMD want to sell the 7600X? It just doesn't
Yeah,
feel
for
like they
real.
want to. They're making it very difficult to incentivize people to buy that CPU. But
And you said that if you bought this $500 motherboard, the Aorus Master, you're not gonna buy a 7600 with it, right? Which is what, $300
no,
minimum?
I was contemplating a 7900X personally. But even
Okay,
still,
but
like at that point, like shouldn't I should just go for X670? I'm skipping
yeah,
the budget proposition of B series motherboards because it's not a
wi-
budget series of like motherboards. That's the whole point of the B. It's budget.
yeah.
Like,
But I'm just trying to say, like, no matter what, like, you can't justify even getting a 7600 because, like you said, you're spending premium dollar. So why get a cheap CPU? Or it's not cheap, but the cheapest CPU with it, if you're already spending a lot of money, you're gonna want to get at least the 7700X. But that's where there's no budget. The motherboards cost as much as the CPU. It's insane.
well, this is why I'm excited for Raptor Lake now because I feel like once Raptor Lake comes down from Intel's side, we're going to see some pretty interesting changes to pricing. I would hope
Yeah,
because Intel is in a weirdly good position right now because they can offer 13th gen to existing 12th gen owners. Although I don't know why you're upgrading a CPU every generation. That's a bit much in my in my mind. But that option is there. They could drop a 13th gen CPU like the 13600K into a Z690 motherboard, no problems. And that motherboard could also be using DDR4, which is a lot cheaper to get than DDR5 right now. Um, so Intel's got a really good advantage right now that AMD just does not have whatsoever. They can't leverage anything like past gen. This is all a new lineup of hardware, and they can't rely on people going back at all for anything. Um, just picking up on the chat now. So Tech Labs is saying that our old Aorus B450 Pro was £66 new from Amazon. The Aorus B650 Pro is $350. Well, that sums it up for
jeez.
you. But like we were just talking about the Pro Carbon B450 board I've got from MSI. I bought that for about £120, I believe, about 3 years ago. And the B650 Carbon is £350 now. So even though it's that difference over like 2 generations, which is absolutely absurd. Um, but what are you thinking, Jerry? You keen for an upgrade now after seeing these prices?
No, man, it's insane. And I'm glad I got the X570 Aorus Elite for 130.
Oh yeah, you've done really well on that.
Yeah, because we were gonna wait to maybe just get the whole new platform, but nah, we're skipping that.
Nope.
Um, does anybody in the chat actually have any B the B650s or the X670Es? That'd be kind of interesting. I don't think so. The way we've been kind of talking, everyone's been talking about it from last episode, but I'd be interested to see who does have one and what their experience is on it. And if you guys are planning to get one, even if it's not anytime soon, but maybe in the near future, just to see how our audience is.
I'd be curious to see because I think from the people who have popped up, they're mostly from the Discord currently, and I think the consensus has been fairly similar on there as well. But like I said on the stream before, I was contemplating going for Ryzen 7000 series, but I'm really kind of I don't know if I can justify it. I maybe could justify it by offsetting it potentially because I may like fingers crossed maybe getting a sample from MSI. They just said they have to
Yeah,
wait on allocation for the next 4 weeks or something like that, and then they would get back to me. So it's not a
and
certainty, but
see,
it's a possibility it could happen. So if I could get the sample, I could justify the cost of the CPU and DDR5 then. But
yeah, as I say,
am
at
I gonna
that
spend? Am I
point
gonna
though,
spend my
you're
own money? No, I'm not gonna buy it
yeah,
myself.
at that point, price isn't a factor anymore, which is the big detractor here. So obviously, free would be a good reason to upgrade. But that's a very good point. Just right there, like, yeah, I would love one, but can't afford it. But if I'm gonna get one for free, then that's cool. I'll take it.
But I would feel
Oh,
maybe if they're struggling to sell them like in like 4 weeks, I think maybe they'd be like, yeah, we need to try and get as much promo on this as possible, even from like
yeah.
much smaller YouTubers. So maybe that would help. I don't know. Um,
TechLab commented. He said, we were going to get an X670 with the 7600 when released, but then we realized they were insane prices, so no.
exactly. This is what I was saying now. So how could you justify spending £300 on a 7600X and pairing it with an X670 board, which costs like nearly twice as much on certain ones,
Yeah.
or going B series, and it's more than the CPU itself, which is completely absurd. Lucky Man, same as well. No way too much. So he's. I think we're all in agreement that the prices for B650, X670, and Ryzen as a whole are still way too high. I really hope that when Intel comes around with 13th gen, that story will change. But for now, though, yesterday was so disheartening to see, especially with the really lukewarm reception with no one seeming interested in covering them. Because even if you're not paying for it and you're getting those samples in, you'd think you'd be wanting to get content out focusing on those new series of motherboards, but I'm not seeing much at all. I saw DeBauer do some sort of socket mod, which isn't really a review of the motherboard itself. He could do that on any AM5 motherboard anyway. There's a UK
Um,
channel, Kit Guru. They did a review. Apart from that, I'm not seeing much at all.
on, on this website, it's saying that the X670E Asus ROG Strix is sold out. That was a $500 one. The Asus ROG Strix X670E iGaming Wi-Fi, I guess that's the I, not the E. That one was sold out for $470. The Gigabyte X670E Aorus Extreme sold out for $700. The MSI Meg X670E Ace was sold out for $700. The Meg Godlike sold out for $1,300, and then the MPG Carbon, the X670E, sold out for $480. So someone's buying them, unless they were never in stock, which I doubt.
I don't think those sold out. I personally feel like they didn't have stock, and they don't like when we looked at they were like offering pre-orders. So I'm guessing
Yeah,
they don't have stock allocated. They're just waiting for orders. So maybe they've
they just put
done
out of
that, but
stock.
they've said sold out instead. That'd be my fault.
Normally, normally what I usually see is they put it in same price. They'll put like $10,000 just like as a placeholder.
Yeah, they do that
But
over here as well.
maybe, huh? I don't know. I can't say. But it is odd. It is odd that it does say out of stock. But yeah, because that $1,300 one is insane. The Godlike.
I think at that point though, like the people who are buying that don't really give like two hoots about the feature set. They're more so like, yep, that's got the highest number for the price. That must be a really good system for motherboard rather.
Yeah. Or they're like, that's a tax write-off. It's for the business.
Yeah. all that as well. But they're obviously making it for that motherboard. There's a very limited number of them as well. They're not making like as many of those as they would for the typical consumer boards.
Yeah.
So if they can sell a couple of them, they know a couple of people will hook, line, and sinker go for it. So they're trying to like see if anyone's foolish enough to spend that much on a motherboard. Tech Lab, if we could have got a board CPU and RAM for 400 to 500, we would have done it. But I think that's a much more reasonable level to like get into, rather than doubling that to where it's like if you want to go for even the lower end like 7600X, X670, or even B650, and a decent kit of DDR5, you're looking at about $1,000 or more, which is not ideal. Or maybe not $1,000, but it was still a lot more than I would pay for a 6-core CPU along with like a fairly slow kit of DDR5. Even though DDR5 is pretty fast as it is, but even the slower speeds of kits, DDR5, are not quite comparable to high-speed DDR4. But it's not ideal. Lucky Man, gonna stick with MSI B550 Carbon Gaming and my 5950X and wait a year on price. Yeah, if I'm being like, I don't want to like be like too brutally honest, but if you're on a 5000 series CPU and a 500 series chipset, there's very little need to be upgrading to Ryzen 7000 series, I would say. Depending on your use case, because obviously like everyone's use case is going to be different, but for the average person, going from a 5950X to something on 7000 series is very marginal, depending on what you're doing. Tech Lab, our high-end gaming PC used to be 500 all in all. Lol, insane. Now it gets you a decent cooler. That's the way of the world, it seems.
Yeah, that's a high end AIO right there.
Mm.
um, what's it called? A 5950X. That sounds pretty great. I wouldn't mind. I would probably wait on that for a while. What does interest me is when they do come out with the new 3D, the 3DX or the new 3D cache AMD card, whatever that is, whether it's the 7800
Or the 3DV
X3D.
cache.
Yeah.
That's it. That could
So
be pretty appealing. But even still, when we saw that pop up with the 5800X 3D, it was, well, it's continuing to be a chart topper when it comes to 1080p gaming. So if that's your use case, then absolutely. If you had, let's contextualize it a little bit. Let's say you were on a first gen AM5 motherboard, AM4 motherboard, so like a B350 or X370 motherboard, and you had like a 1600 or a 1700. That to a 5800X3D is a very substantial jump, which you could do without changing out the motherboard or your memory. And that will net you a decent performance uplift anyway. So you can do that. But obviously, the thing that they did find with this additional L3 cache that the Ryzen 5800X 3D has is that it's great for gaming at 1080p, but not much else. So unless that's your thing that you're going for high refresh 1080p, that's the main benefit of it. But for anything else, you kind of at 1440p 4K, you're starting to become more GPU bound, and the L3 cache you have in your CPU is a lot less consequential when it comes to that. But even still, 5800X3D is selling like crazy right now because of the reception of Ryzen 7000 series. But for me personally, I wouldn't be that interested in one myself. But I don't game at 1080p or play many high refresh titles like competitive esports, stuff like that. Maybe it could be more. So, what about you, Jerry? What resolution do you game at? But you play a lot of high refresh competitive shooters, so it's a bit
yeah,
more
I
along
like
that
to play
line.
it
But what
at
resolution you at though?
1440p. I like to
4040,
play
right?
at
Okay.
yeah, I feel like I think that should be the new standard, at least on 60 frames, 1440. You know how it used to be 1080p 60 frames. I think with the prices of 1440p monitors, how low they are now compared to how they used to be before, there should be no reason to start at 1080p. I understand if you're like building a budget PC or something, or for a kid or something, that's fine. But I think you can build a pretty good PC and get a pretty good monitor for a pretty good price, and at least game at 1440p 60 frames. But I like pushing that. It looks great. I get high frames, so I feel like that's a good standard for me right now. Um, at minimum, I'll get like 120 frames at ultra settings, depending on the game. But even with like a 6700 XT or a 3060 Ti, you can get pretty good numbers with that. What about
Well,
you?
well, for me, on my main system, I game at 1440p on a 144 hertz panel, and then downstairs I've got the gigabyte monitor, the 4K 144 hertz one. So it kind of like switches around. So, but I'm mostly GPU bound, right, regardless of what system I'm playing on. But the main thing I'm thinking about now is well, actually, before I get into that though, I just want to clarify. I've just dropped up a poll in the chat that I thought would be pretty interesting for the duration of the stream, actually, because obviously we're getting to some more GPU related topics in just a second, just to see what resolution everyone's gaming at. And if anyone's playing a 144p, I want to know who you are. But no, so it could be quite interesting, especially as we like get into some more GPU discussions now. But the thing I'm finding now, like, because I was saying about, I've got the two separate systems. So I like have the downstairs HBC, which I play out on a lot. Um, Unless I do end up going for Ryzen 7000 series, which I said the main incentive for me is sort of connectivity, because I feel like B450 is starting to really limit what I can do in terms of like storage and uh, connectivity for like front panel and stuff like that. I may actually like do a bit of like a Frankenstein build where I combine my ITX rig with my current rig, and that way save a ton of money, but also downsize slightly and just go for a more like aesthetically pleasing build, if that makes sense. But so I may drop my 3900 XT into my B550 motherboard and then downsize my system entirely so I have a B550 platform without like losing on the connectivity, which I'm already losing out on with B450, and save the cost of buying a really absurdly priced Ryzen 7000 series system. But that's the current idea for now, though. But we'll leave the poll going for, well, basically the whole stream, and we'll see like how it's looking at the end of the show. But for now, though, we'll keep that up, and we'll get into some more topics now in just a second. We'll just catch up on the chat a second because we got a lot of retracted messages from Just Chance. I don't know. You might have made a mistake. I don't know what's going on there, but. Tech Lab, play games on a TV, so aim for 4K 60 or at least 1440p 60. That's not too bad then, and especially if you got like it depends what TV you got in all honesty, but like if you got one with a decent gaming mode on there, so there's like not too much issue with latency, like 4K 60 or 1440p 60 is totally fine on your generic like brand TV. I knew like I've got a 4K 60 TV that I've currently got in my bedroom, and that was okay. And latency not too bad, but it's still better to be playing on like an actual 4K monitor, especially that gigabyte one because it is like basically just a TV size monitor anyway. But don't play competitive games though. Yes, it's gonna vary. This is the whole point we're saying now with like your use case because like high refresh like esports titles don't really mean that much to me. That's not really the kind of thing I go for. I play more like single player generic type things. If that makes sense. Whereas like yourself, Jerry, you play a lot of COD and more like competitive shooters and stuff like that. So that's where like high refresh is still extremely useful there. Um, would you even drop down to like a 1080p 360 hertz monitor? Because I've heard those are really good.
Nah,
No,
I like my image quality. Um, 1080p. Well, it does look nice. Like I said, I feel like 1440p to me is pretty good. It's not 4K, but it still looks really good, and I still get good frames. I feel like that's a good compromise right there. Um, with the newer cars, they're pushing these frames a lot higher at higher resolutions too. So it's I'm probably not gonna go back to 1080p if I can help it. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with 1080p. It's just not for me. Not for me at the moment.
I feel like 1080p is very, very achievable nowadays. You don't need to buy. You don't have to invest too much money to be able to play 1080p minimum 60. If we're being brutally honest, like you don't need current gen hardware to be able to do that. In all honesty, um, but it's still like a good entry point either way. But I do feel like 1440p is going to start to become that baseline when we're looking at performance, especially with well, especially after today we're seeing how well more CPU bound we're going to become with these like lower resolutions. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking, how about we get into our headline topic for today? Um, Yeah, because it's been a bit of a crazy day for these. So we finally saw the RTX 4090 reviews pop up. So we just got this one from Tom's Hardware to refer to. And if we take a look at this verdict from here, so they've given it a 4.5 star review, which I don't know about doing like a starring system, but either way, the RTX 4090 delivers on the technological and performance fronts, easily best in previous generation offerings, with major enhancements to all the core hardware and significantly higher clock speeds, plus forward-looking tech like DLSS 3. The new bar has been set very high with an equally high price tag. So I think that was kind of like the way we were expecting things to go. And we'll get into some of the benchmarks further down on here. But the basic gist is 4090 is fast as hell. Which I don't think anyone should be surprised about. But yeah, so basically from what the reviews we've seen, the 4090 is the absolute king of gaming as of today now. And that does come as we expect with an increased power draw, which is on a scale we only saw just about with the 3090 Ti. And like again, the big issue, similar to how Ryzen 7000 series is handling right now, is going to be pricing. So as you can see on here, we've got a couple of pros and cons they've listed from this article on here. So again, fastest GPU currently available. Like no shit, we know that now.
It should be.
Oh yeah. DLSS 3 addresses CPU bottlenecks. That's something I'm going to get into later on when we get into this regarding DLSS 3 because I'm still uncertain on that. AV1 support is pretty cool, and dual NVENC, which if you're into like more content creation, that's going to appeal to you quite a lot. The cons though, extreme pricing and power. It's going to be that with the flagship especially, but even still, it's a bit much of an ask at about $1,600. I think it's $1,600. Either way, limited gains at 1440p and lower resolutions. So basically, unless you play a 4K, do not buy a 4090. It's crazy how even a 1440p they are seeing where like they are actually being held back by the CPU. So it shows that this card is completely like unless you're pushing it a 4K or ray tracing, that's where you need to be. The thing on there, DLSS 3 adoption will take time. So I'm still very much on the fence when it comes to DLSS 3 because there's not a massive amount of titles that do support it. So until we're seeing more of that being adopted by more games as developers integrate it, frankly, I don't really care too much about DLSS 3, especially since it's locked down to 4000 series, which I think there's another interesting ball in itself. Similar to how like we were discussing smart access memory for AMD before, and how immediately after that, Nvidia was like, "Oh yeah, we've got that resizable bar support. Here you go. Here's a BIOS update. You can do it now with no problems." Could be similar to that, where like they lock it down for a certain period of time, like, "Oh, we've managed to integrate it on previous generation hardware." Could be something like that.
Really sold enough GPUs.
Exactly. So you never know because well, AMD's had great success with FSR and implementing that on not even their own hardware, but all GPUs. Like it was such a baller move when they first announced it, and they shown the performance gains on the GTX 1060, which is like a huge that's a stab in the back for Nvidia in themselves. And on here as well, we also need to see RDNA 3. So of course, by the start of next month, AMD's got an event when they're going to be launching RDNA 3 GPUs. Launching or announcing. Was that?
Is that a fair con? I feel like that shouldn't be on there. I understand why, but
It's not really a con though. That's more a pro because we're getting more competition, so that's always good to see either way. But anyway, that's still something to consider because I think in a couple of weeks, again, we're gonna have even more competition. Better than some when it comes to GPUs, especially. The inevitable RTX 4090 Ti looms. Now, I can't remember if we looked at anything regarding a 4090 Ti, but I wouldn't put it past them.
No official word.
No, I would put it past them if that was the case, though, either way.
The only thing that even come close to a 4090 Ti was supposedly their Nvidia's cards that was blowing up PSUs and whatnot and frying wires, and that's probably the closest that they came to.
But this is still rumored stuff currently, isn't it? That's the problem.
Yeah, and supposedly they stopped making that. That they weren't gonna make that, whatever card that was. So, but they probably will make a 4090 Ti just to make more money.
But let's have a little look. Let's try and find some actual benchmarks just to refer to.
Okay. Did you see any videos today? Any reviewers while you scroll down and try to find something? Did
Um,
anybody see any reviews on YouTube or read any? Let us know as well. I
which
watched
ones did you
the
watch? Jace Two
J's Two
Cents.
Cents
Okay.
Gamers Nexus. Something unboxed, hardware unboxed.
The Australians, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just saw theirs.
that's it. Um, right, I'm going through. There's a couple of like production benchmarks coming up. I think we'll just take a look at gaming for now. I think that's what is going to appeal to the most people in the stream currently. Where's our gaming benchmarks? Come on.
I'm trying to find it. Page 3. Yeah, page 3.
Oh, I skipped past it then. Okay, there's one on here. It's just an 8 game average. Let's use that for now, just to get a basic gist on it. So,
Yeah, it
uh,
lets you scroll left and right as well.
okay, well let's take a look at the 8 game average for now when it comes to 4K specifically on here. So, I've got this popping up on here now. So, on here we've got basically a benchmark table listing from the 4090 all the way down to the A770, which will also be taking a little look at as well, because views came off of that last week now. And that's quite interesting. But anyway, we're focusing on the 4090 currently. But as we can see on here, across an 8 game average for FPS at 4K, the RTX 4090 averaged 124.8 FPS on average. Now, I know that doesn't tell us much because we don't know the actual games listed, but it's more so taking a look at this huge gain in performance on average compared to the 3090 Ti, which was already like a pretty crazy card in the first place. Jerry, you could testify this because you actually tested a 3090 Ti. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's it. And compared to some of the other cards you've tested previously on the channel, that was a pretty big uplift, all things considered.
Yeah, it was a pretty nice card. Surprisingly, the 6900 XT would go toe to toe with it in some of the games. But I mean, yeah, it was a nice card. The thing that surprised me the most too was it was actually a pretty cool card. I thought it was gonna be hot, but that big fan worked pretty well on it. I wouldn't mind having it permanently. I'll tell you that, especially with ray tracing.
Oh, especially for ray tracing. But I'm guessing when you said it was like going sort of toe to toe with the 6900 XT, that was more so with like raster performance. But then when it came
Yeah,
to RT, that's kind of where like things dipped off on AMD's side. I'm guessing.
yeah, and then obviously with DLSS too, it helped out the 3090 Ti tremendously. But do we really count that?
No, that's it. There. But either way, you can see on here the closest AMD card would then be the 6950 XT, which even now that was quite a big uplift over the 6900 XT, which I feel was I can't remember when each one came out, but the 6950 XT and the 3090 Ti came out pretty close together as a sort of like answer on both ends for that. But either way, but this uplift you can see on here, which I can't. I'm not gonna be able to give you the exact percentage. Just looking at this currently, it's still a pretty absurd uplift gen over gen. What else have we got in this list on here? So we got Borderlands 3. Okay, so again, we're seeing a huge uplift over like the previous generation's fastest card with the 3090 Ti at 4K badass. Is that really what they call their ultra settings in Borderlands?
Yeah, I could see that. They're they're pretty wild. Hmm.
Fair enough. I haven't played Borderlands, so it's not one I'm particularly familiar with. But either way, so 4K badass settings in Borderlands 3. You'll go in at 79.5 FPS on average for the 3090 Ti, but 126.3 for the RTX 4090. That is a very noticeable increase in performance, especially at 4K, where, of course, you are like going to be much more constrained by your GPU's performance. Um, But let's take a look at some other games on here. But as you can see, this lead is still it's very consistent across the board when we take a look at these games. So again, Far Cry
I
6
think
Ultra.
I think Far Cry was made more for AMD GPUs, so uh there's a little slight preference on that.
There's a little bit on there, but if you consider the difference
Yeah.
between the 3090 Ti and the 6950 XT, 3 FPS is not a massive noticeable gain. But even still,
Yeah.
it is still AMD's in AMD's favor on there. But then the 4090 has completely like demolished that. In all
Obliterated.
honesty,
Yeah.
what else we
Yeah, that's
got?
crazy.
Flight Simulator. You can finally play it over 60. No, you could before, but even still,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
for that game, it's not as I'd argue it's not as crucial to be playing that as such a high frame rate. But even still, the 4090 is like killing it on this as well, and it's pushed it to 77.6 FPS on average, which is and it also includes. Um, okay, I don't quite understand what they're referring to on there because they've said the RTX 4090 at 77.6 FPS on average, and then the RTX 4090 DLSS-Q, which I assume is DLSS quality, is
Yeah,
74.3. So
yeah, it is odd that it is lower.
that's a bit
But I would assume
strange.
that's quality settings as well. And it's kind of odd that they don't have any other of them with DLSS on.
That's a
I
bit of
didn't
a,
realize
I,
Flight
I,
Sim.
I'm not gonna pay too much attention to that metric then, because it seems a bit wasted when not compared to everyone else's. Then,
Yeah,
um,
huh.
but anyway,
That is weird that it'd
Flight
be
Sim is a
lower.
very demanding title either way. What else we got? Forza again. Uh,
As I say, in my experience, I use Forza Horizon as one of my benchmarks. It's a fun game. It's a very demanding game. Compared to Forza Horizon 4, that one was built pretty crazy. It could run high frames. Forza Horizon 5, it's hard to get good frames on there. And in my opinion, I think Forza Horizon 5 is a very good game to benchmark because even though it was made for Xbox, which is technically an AMD platform, I feel like it's not very biased to either card. They all perform in what or what range they should, like according to their tier of cards they are. So I would look at this one pretty closely.
so what do you think on this performance gap between the 6950 XT and the 4090? That's a pretty big jump.
Yeah, that's insane. That's that's huge. Playing at 4K, 150 frames, that'd be pretty wild because just playing this at 4K 120 frames would be nice. So getting that extra 30 frames cushion just in case you get into an intensive part of the map or whatever is pretty wild. Honestly, 150 frames pretty much at 4K is insane. Like I said, this game's very demanding. It's a open world, high textures. It's just I don't know how how it's able to do that. And I think this is showing right here that this is technically the next gen that we've kind of been looking
But
for
that
4K.
even the leap over the 3090 Ti to the 6950 XT is quite a decent jump. But again, you did say this is like an AMD optimized title, isn't it? So that could be why on
It
there.
it's technically supposed to be, but it's not too bad. Not too bad when you compare them. At least in my results that I get, they're a little more. The Nvidia cards do push a little more better frames
Hmm.
than the AMD ones. Yeah, because if
Uh,
you look at the 3070 and the 6700s,
well, let's go
um,
back a minute. I just skipped to the next one a second. So the
okay,
3070.
I know those are 1440p cards, mostly, but their results are the 3070 is a little better. And if this was favored more for AMD, you would probably see the reverse. You'd see those two above the 3070.
You would
Um,
think, wouldn't you? Yeah.
yeah, the 6800 is pretty much on par with the 3070 Ti, and that one actually does blow it out of the water. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good benchmark. Whoever has Forza Horizon 5 or Xbox Game Pass, download the game. It's fun and see what results you get.
Well, maybe if I get into some more GPU testing myself, maybe that'd be one I'd integrate myself, because it does seem like you could get some interesting results between like both AMD and Nvidia and Intel now as well, of course.
Yeah, and it tells down there.
Um, so the next one, I quite like this one as well for Horizon Zero Dawn, because the increase in performance with DLSS seems a bit more prevalent. I don't know why they wouldn't have tested on the other cards though, but either way, that's fine.
Yeah.
But even still, we're seeing a very similar uplift in performance again, which is like from the 3090 Ti to the 4090. You're seeing like what would you call that? Like uh 1/3 performance uplift or something along those lines. That's pretty absurd. I'm not going to look at every single one on here, wise, but the last one I think would probably be Cyberpunk. So let me have a little scan through. Oh no,
So,
they didn't test Cyberpunk. Doesn't matter. But
I'll say you don't look at Red Dead. Isn't that like your
Oh, I
your
suppose I
favorite game?
could. Yeah, let's round those benchmarks off with Red Dead then. So on here we're seeing a pretty huge uplift. Essentially, it's quite similar gains compared to Horizon Zero Dawn. Again, they're both open world titles, so you can see that sort of callback on there. But 3090 Ti coming in at 93.5 FPS on average, and then the 4090 at 156.4 FPS on average with DLSS quality is a huge difference, especially when you're running an ultra in Red Dead Redemption, which, like, to contextualize that a little bit, when Red Dead 2 came out on PC in 2019, it was a pretty buggy launch. So like there was a couple of issues in the first place, but either way, like the flagship at the time when Red Dead 2 came out was the 2080 Ti, and it's not even on this chart as it wasn't even able to run ultra 4K. So that just goes to show how well this game was like improved over time, but also how demanding it was back when it first came out. But to see that sort of generational improvement between last gen and now is absurd. And again, it's like, well, as Jerry just said on here, it's one of my favorite games. To see that sort of performance uplift is pretty crazy. And I've been sort of quite content with the performance my 3080 10 gig has in this game, because I can pretty safely max it out at 4K on here and not have too many issues. What you can see on here, it's got the benchmarks for like a 38 on here, averaged in around 74 FPS. For a game like this, that's pretty good going, especially like a slow paced open world title. But man, it's just I can't. It's the big thing with this new lineup of hardware, specifically the 4090, is how absurd this generational improvement has been. And I think this is one of the things reviewers have like mentioned specifically when it came to their reviews of how like. I think Jay's 2 cents said like specifically this is one of the biggest launches he's had to like contend with in quite some time. I know Gamers Nexus also compared it to the launch for 10 series. I don't know if he said. I don't think he said for the 1080 Ti because he was like saying that's how Nvidia's biggest regret was the 1080 Ti because it was so well valued. It was such good value with such good performance, and Nvidia was like, "Damn, we better not do another one of those again. Let's let's pump that money up a little bit, you know." But either way, so it's a very unusual and like different launch, I think, compared this year now. The one thing I do want to look at before we kind of like close out the topic with a bit of a discussion on it is some bits on actual what's it called power. Where was that on here? Let's take a little look. Because power is obviously going to be a big question mark for a lot of people when it comes to this release now. Can you remember what page it was? Let's have a look for power. What have we got? Okay, we can use this on here now. So it's got a thing for Metro Exodus power draw. Okay, so on here, if we're looking at Metro Exodus on loop, it's 436 watts, which is absolutely crazy. Let's take a look on here. Let's just go through the very last one, which should sum it up on here. No, this one now. So on here, so it's using Thermark as a stress test to look at overall board power, and it's drawing 462 watts, which is admittedly a little less than this 3090 Ti they have on here, but only by like 4 watts. So it's not exactly a huge difference overall. So all these reports about like extremely high-powered GPUs, especially for the 4090, are kind of well-founded. And well, if we take a look at that performance, it's understandable how much power is being added to this in addition to that. And especially some of the cooler sizes we've seen for the 4090 are absolutely absurd anyway. Um, but yeah, Lucky Man's on here. Sorry, I've kind of been neglecting the chat a little bit on here. So Lucky Man was just saying here, may get an R card at a push, but maybe hard to get as well as it will sell fast. Well, this is what Jerry will be able to answer for himself when he tries to get both either an A770 or a 3090 tomorrow. So you'll have to keep up with Jerry in the chat on Discord to see how he gets on. PC Centric has built with a 4090. Yes, I did see he did a not a live build. It was like a premiere build, I think, where he did one. I don't know what card he used. I need to actually watch the video. I just saw it pop up in my subscription feed. And 4090, 600 watts though. Don't need heating on. Well, there you go. That's anyway, no one has to worry about putting their heating on nowadays. They can just turn their computer on. It's totally fine. But yeah, rounding out like. Before we move on to take a look at the A770, I just thought I'd close things out with just a bit of a discussion on how we're feeling about the 4090 currently. So I know I've been waffling on quite a lot looking at some of these results we have from Tom's Hardware, but what's your overall, not consensus, because obviously you haven't tested it yourself yet, but your sort of feeling on this launch or like the reviews as of today, Jerry?
Like my first viewing or my first glimpse at my first, I guess my first glimpse at the 4090 of what it can be. I'm actually sorry, covering the camera. I'm actually very excited to see what it does. Mainly because at this price range, last year we had the 3090s, which were 1500 and higher. I think for a while they were a lot more than 1500. They were around $2,000, if you remember.
Oh yeah.
Um, the 3090 Ti's too. And what was it, like 2 months ago? Maybe 2 months ago, the 3090 Ti's were still $1,800, $2,000. And maybe you could have got one for 1500, but like a lot of the reviewers are saying they feel bad for anyone that just bought a 3090 Ti at that high price, and if they just waited out a little more, they could have got this 4090. And the reason why it sucks that they could have waited is because this takes a huge leap into the next gen, into 4K gaming. A lot of people don't have a 4K monitor that can output more than 60 frames. People like TechLab said, he plays on his TV, which is 4K 60 frames, I'm assuming. A lot of people's TVs only goes up to 60 hertz, so they're not going to be able to push their 4090 as hard. But there is a select few that have the high refresh rate 4K monitors, and I'm sure they've been waiting for something to help push their games to match their monitor. There's people that have a lot of money, and there's people that like to use that money on
Oh yeah.
on high end products. And I mean, if I could, I would. And I'm definitely looking forward to this. I'm liking that this is gonna push AMD to try to be more competitive, whether that be power efficiency or not. Um, but it's looking good for 4K gaming, and it's also looking good for ray tracing because even if you don't have a monitor that has these high frames, you can put ray tracing on and get a crazy game with ray tracing experience. This last gen, I feel like ray tracing wasn't really all that, but if you can get a lot more frames while using it, I'm all for it. So I'm excited, man. I'm pretty excited on what the 4090 is gonna be able to do.
Well, what I thought we could do, because I made a point of looking at this when the reviews went up, was looking at the comments on some of the videos. So I've just pulled up uh, the Gamers Nexus 4090 review, and some of the comments on here, there wasn't the general consensus among a lot of people was kind of like, yeah, it's cool and all, but like it's just too out of reach because of the pricing. So I just pulled up the excuse me the comments on stream now. Um, so right, there's a lot of fluff where people congratulating Games Nexus on their review technology. Uh, what's the word? Methodology. I want to try and see where these comments were that I was referring to on here. Um, someone on here said, I'm surprised we got a performance jump this big, but the price followed as well. With that said, I'm waiting to see what AMD has done with RDNA 3, as had a 50% uplift as well. This may indicate we'll get a new console mid-gen upgrade again. Okay. So again, there's still people that are kind of like on the fence when it comes to like whether they're going to be actually going for this or AMD, which I think a lot of people are going to be in for the next couple of weeks until AMD does come out with their like RDNA 3 like announcement. So we'll see a lot of that. So what we got on here? So we got someone saying, despite all the negative press Nvidia get, I have to dock my cap to them on this one as they seem to have gone all out to try and steal it from AMD, and I'll be shocked if Team Red can even approach this level of power. I'll be joining if there will be whatever queue I need tomorrow to get one of these monsters. Okay, so we got someone that's actually keen to get one of these. I wasn't seeing so much of this earlier, but when it comes to what AMD need to do to like try and like match up to this release, I think that if they can match up when it comes to raster performance, I think that's kind of enough as is. I'm not expecting them to like level with them on RT performance. I'd be very shocked if they did. But at least they would see an improvement over last gen RT performance on AMD's part, because that was kind of like the main one of the drawbacks on AMD's hardware was RT performance not being quite as on par to Nvidia. But it was their first gen of RT, to be fair. So how have you found that? Because from the AMD cards you've tested, how has ray tracing implementation seemed to have like worked out performance wise?
Not too crazy, honestly. Definitely compared to Nvidia, and well, if the rumors are true, Intel looks like they actually beat AMD at that as well. But like I said, this last gen, ray tracing really wasn't it for me, just because even with Nvidia, it did knock back performance quite a bit. Except,
Hmm.
maybe you could use DLSS to get those frames back, but then at that point you're reducing image quality, which kind of defeats the purpose of having ray tracing on if it's to make the game look better.
That is
But
true. Yeah.
it's
But
it's kind of weird. You turn ray tracing on so the game can look better, but then you use something to reduce the image quality, which is kind of counterintuitive. But now with the a lot higher frame rates, it seems like you'll be able to play the ray tracing games at pretty much the same level as the 3090 Ti, maybe. Obviously, we don't
hmm.
know exactly yet, but with the big hit it used to get, I'm just kind of basing it on that. I think that'd be pretty great.
Hmm. Twanis just popped up in the chat, so welcome to the show, Twanis, and thanks to see you popping up. So you're saying I'm going to predict the 7900 XT performance will fall somewhere in between the 4080 and 4090 performance. That seems like a pretty good like ballpark to aim for when it comes to performance for AMD's part on there. But again, are they going to do this mid-series refresh with like a 50 XT launch? I wouldn't be surprised if they did, and maybe that would place them a bit closer to the 4090, or maybe even over it, like we saw with the 6950 XT. At which point would they again follow that up with the 4090 Ti? That's something that's going to be interesting to see. But going back to the ray tracing thing though, like I've had this contemplation going on for quite a few weeks specifically based on what I've been playing gaming wise. So recently I've been playing like Cyberpunk 2077, which is like I don't know if like people in the chat. I was gonna bring this up on the stream a while ago, but Cyberpunk's seen a bit of a resurgence lately, which is kind of cool because I've been really enjoying playing it again, like properly, like for the first time in quite some time. But going back performance wise, obviously that's like a pretty popular title when it comes to its ray tracing implementation,
It
and
looks beautiful in that game.
it does. But I had it on for a while, and I was like, right, it looks really nice. Okay, I really like my performance back now, and then just turned it off. So I played most of it
Yeah.
with ray tracing off. But that's kind of me. Once I've seen ray tracing in the game for the first 5 minutes, I'm quite impressed. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That looks really nice. And then I'm like, nah, I want that like higher FPS if I'm being totally honest. And I had the same thing. Like this week, I've been replaying Resident Evil 7, and that only recently had ray tracing implemented. And I was playing it for like the first. I played the first hour of the game, and then I was like, right, okay, that's cool. Right, I'm gonna knock ray tracing off because I want higher refresh on it now. Uh, so it just doesn't quite like do it for me in certain titles, given the performance drop off, and that's on like no actually. So Cyberpunk, I was doing that on a 3080. I just wanted higher FPS. I didn't really care about RT. But then I was playing Resident Evil 7 on my 3060 Ti. So obviously ray tracing would be a bit harder of a hit on that. But even still, I just knocked it off because I still think that game looks beautiful as is without ray tracing enabled. Um, but it's going to depend on your preference. Again, like I said, to answer saying now, the screen space reflections are really good already in Cyberpunk. So that's the thing. These games still look very good with pure raster performance. That's the thing. But if you got the hardware to boot, like a 4090, of course you're going to be enabling it. That's the thing on there.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what I was saying. It seems like maybe this will finally be the gen where ray tracing can take off, just because the performance hit won't be significant enough where you still won't get those high frames with just how crazy the card pushes. Um, yeah, and it depends on the game too, because on Call of Duty I turned on ray tracing and honestly it looked the same. It was like barely noticeable difference. That was in Cold War though, but it was I guess maybe in the 70s, ray tracing really wasn't a thing, so they really didn't
yeah,
implement it well.
maybe
It's,
that. um, I've seen quite a bit of an absurd comment on here. So, bring on 8K, impressive. I'll keep my 3090 Ti for a couple of years, and then when games are created to truly take advantage of RT, I'll buy one. It's like, wow, I think we're still a ways off from 8K gaming, unless we go back to
Minecraft.
the release of 8K Minecraft, obviously. Um, Especially that bullshit that Nvidia tried to pull off with the 3090 launch, with like first ever 8K gaming graphics card. It's like, really? You sure about that? I don't know.
Yeah, for real.
That's a bit of a tough sell, but yeah, pop off from there now though. But I am also going to be really excited for tomorrow because only the Founders Edition reviews went live today. It's going to be tomorrow when the AIB models go live. So I am going to be interested to check those out as well. What have you got there, Jerry? I can't quite make it out from here.
It says supports 4K 120 Hz HDR, 8K 60 Hz HDR, and variable refresh.
So you
So
tried that out on your AK monitor?
no, I have not tried it out on my 8K monitor. That's the 3070 Ti. Let's see if this says it as well.
How much is an
Uh,
AK display? I haven't looked at this.
I don't, I don't even think I've seen one. And this is video streaming up to 8K, but I don't know. I feel like they're little liars when it comes to that.
Ooh. Are you ready for this, Jerry? I'm going to bring this up on the stream, but like, do you want to
Are you
guess
ready
how
for this?
much? I've got an LG OLED, AK HDR TV. Any guesses how much it's going for in the UK?
What what's the screen size?
88 inch.
88 inch? Uh, what is it? 10,000 whatever currency you guys have? Higher? 14? Higher? 19?
2500,
24?
25,000.
25? Jeez, that's
So in
crazy.
all, like, if we're being like completely fair, like, getting a
Just to play
4090 on
Minecraft?
top, yeah, getting a 4090 on top of that is like pennies. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can get a 20. I can get this TV for 25,000, and only 1,500 more. I can get a 4090 on it. It's great, and I can play an
At,
AK-30.
at that point, they should just bundle in the 4090 with it. Have a special offer with it.
It should come with the 4090 implemented in the actual TV itself.
Yeah. Might need it to run the TV. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I've never seen. I don't think I've even seen an 8K TV in person. Um, if I did, I probably thought it was real life I was looking at, not realizing I was looking at a TV.
Like at that point, like Aliasing is just like a complete knockoff. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like it's just too like pixel density is too excellent at that point. But I think we're a very long way off from adopting 8K. But the fact that 1080p is coming, like, not even a question when it comes to these like high end cards, could be interesting for the rest of these releases coming forward. But I'm personally more excited for the 4080 times 2 releases that we're looking at. Because I still feel like that 4080 12 gig is going to be a very interesting launch, with people drawing a lot of comparison between that and the way the 3070 is priced on the previous generation. But yeah, it's going to be pretty telling.
I
Uh,
keep on the reviews they talk about 1080p, saying it's whatever, the results are whatever compared to the other GPUs. And I keep thinking like, who's gonna buy a 4090 to game in 1080p? That's insane.
I have seen people on Reddit that have built their system. It's got like something like a 3070, and they're using a 1080p 60 hertz display. I'm like, really?
Yeah,
Like,
that's bad, but at least a 3070 is a little more reasonable. You can always upgrade a little later. But a 4090 or even a 3090 to play 1080p is insane. That's just that's
your
blasphemy
priorities are
right
not
there.
quite there, if we're being totally honest. But before we move on to our next GPU we need to discuss, is there anything you want to close off with regarding the 4090, Jerry?
Hopefully I get one soon. And hopefully if any of you guys try to get one, you guys get one as well.
Fingers crossed for everyone if they are after one. But again, I still think they are going to have this very difficult proposition when it comes to pricing specifically. But I could be wrong. You think they're going to sell out, don't you?
Yeah, I believe so. I it's funny because I think they're gonna sell out, and I feel like the Intel Arc won't sell out. But those being the cheaper cards, I might be wrong.
To wait and see. For the A770, I wouldn't be surprised if they did sell out. Just given the price on them. But again, this is what I'll get into now though. But yeah. So before, like, we'll move on from the 4090 for now because I think we've been going on for that for about like nearly an hour now. But we had a lot to say about the 4090 anyway, so it's totally fine. But yeah, if anyone in the chat is contemplating a 4090, let us know because I want to know what you have to say about it. I want to know what you want to game on it with, or what you want to game with. I can't talk. There's too many Guinnesses. I want to know what you're going to play with your 4090, or if you're going to use it for anything else specifically. We haven't even touched on productivity, but that's a whole different like discussion anyway. But I feel like a lot of people are not going to buy us for productivity anyway.
Yeah,
TechLab 4090s for everyone. Well, Nvidia would love it that way if your wallet was big enough.
yeah. Is that is that Tech Lab saying they're gonna buy one for everyone? Because I'm down. How do we subscribe to this?
Yeah, that's it. So if anyone wants a 4090, make sure to subscribe to TechLab UK because he seems to be offering them up. So props to him. He's doing a good job there. That's only fine.
Join this queue.
Yeah. He's gonna get one to play Half-Life 2, which is like understandable. It's totally fine. So
Tech Lab's gonna be like, I'll give you the EVGA 4090.
on the 32nd of never.
Yeah. All right, beat
Very well.
EVGA. Let's go.
Yeah, pull one out for EVGA. But obviously, the other thing we're going to be having to have a discussion on is Intel's A770, which reviews went live for last week. At the same time when Nvidia decided to let the unboxing embargo go for the 4090, which I thought was quite funny. Just to steal the thunder a little bit. But yeah, the reviews went live for the A770 last week, and they're going on sale tomorrow. That's the case then, because you're trying to get one tomorrow, isn't it? So, I've pulled up this another review from Tom's Hardware. I don't have a particular preference for like Tom's Hardware. I just thought if we're going for the like 4090 reviews on Tom's Hardware, we'll use it for both. Either way. So let's go for the verdict on here they've given. So, Intel's Arc A770 limited edition review, bringing back mid-range GPUs. That's a word I like to hear, mid-range. The Intel Arc A770 limited edition delivers a compelling mid-range option for anyone willing to take a chance on continued driver support. You get 16GB of VRAM, an attractive and understated design, and performance that easily rivals the RTX 3060. Now, that's a pretty compelling verdict, all things considered. But is that all there is to it? I don't think there is. That's what we're going to have to get onto specifically. But some of the pros on here. Great price to performance ratio, especially with the price point being at, well, for the limited edition, I think it's 360 or 350, I believe. Or 329 for the non... Oh, that's it. Then for the non-limited edition, it was 329. But either way, excellent video encoding hardware. So it's like there's a particular focus on the AV1 encoder, which you can get on Intel's Arc GPUs. And LTT actually did a video yesterday, I believe, where they tried out. I haven't watched it, but I know it's something to do with they were using an A770 as a second GPU specifically for AV1 encoding. I'll probably watch that later on because I was quite interested to see what it was like on there. I know Epos Vox, who specialized in streaming, did some content on the A380 when it came to AV1 encoding, but it's very interesting to see again that implementation, like or that use case, if that makes sense, rather than gaming. Then yeah, 16 gigabytes of VRAM. I think that's kind of like it's going to be a standard. We're going up there now anyway. Especially like looking at how AMD managed to pull off their VRAM allocation on RDNA 2. XeSS support, which is cool. I know, like Jerry, you're thinking about testing that out yourself, isn't it? At some point, but I think a lot of people are covering that currently as well. Um, that's a really shit pro. It just says "Welcome to the GPU party, Intel." That's not a pro. That's just a
It's it's a pro to everyone that wants to buy GPUs just because there's competition. But yeah, I don't know if it's a pro for Intel because they're just gonna get stomped on by Nvidia and AMD. Not
yeah.
saying there won't be competition, but there's no way that both those companies aren't gonna try to slap them around and try to put them out of their misery before they even get started.
Oh yeah. But this is where it gets. This is where things are a little not surprising, but this is the thing that like I think is gonna like be a big issue for not Nvidia, for Intel moving forward. Now is some of these cons are listed for here. So drivers remain finicky at times. So if you watch the Gamers Nexus A770 review, they actually went into a lot of focus on the fact that they had a lot of issues with multiple monitors not being able to get a display out with an A770. And a lot of the time, it involved them actually getting the drivers installed before actually booting the system with a display out with the card. Which, if you're any sort of like reasonable size YouTube channel, you can quite easily install the drivers before installing the GPU and kind of figure things out from there. But it's not a very easy thing for the average, say, someone who doesn't have any computers and this is their first system they're putting together. It's not going to be ideal to have to go through that whole hassle. And your initial response would be something's broken or I've done something incorrect, which for the average consumer who's not like too much of an enthusiast, that's not good. And if this card is aiming at that mid-range point, that's their clientele, all things considered. So that driver support really needs to be worked on. And I feel like it'll be a similar case to how, if we rewind back to 2019 with the 5000 series from AMD, not CPUs, GPUs. I'm not sure if this would be something you would have looked at a lot yourself, Jerry, but in particular for the 5700 XT, which I had, it was an absolute nightmare for driver support.
What model did you have?
I had the Red Devil from Power Color.
Oh, that's weird. But go on.
But yeah, the actual like, I'd never paid so much attention to driver releases ever before. And I'd regularly be keeping an eye on the drivers. I'd get a lot of them, like a lot of the news, especially from Fabio from Ancient Gameplays, because he does a lot of what would you
AMD
call
driver
it?
releases.
He does a lot of videos focusing on the actual drivers as they come out and goes into detail on what actually has been changed and whatnot. So he kind of became my go-to for like making sure I was going to download a driver that wouldn't like just make my system a pain in the ass.
Yeah, he does stability reports too on the drivers if
That's
they're pretty
it.
stable or if they crash.
But that was the one thing that was a real big issue for like the 5700 XT in particular, and it was just an absolute nightmare. But
And
from
and
RDNA 2, so go on.
I say and with AMD as a whole with the drivers issues, that kind of pushed a lot of consumers away from AMD. Till this day, a lot of people prefer to buy Nvidia over AMD just because of the past driver issues. A lot of times you'll see people commenting whether they're trolling or just someone that doesn't know or is not up to date with the new AMD cards. But a lot of them still think AMD has driver issues just because of that. So that's a pretty bad way to be known as a company.
But that's what I mean. They kind of like achieved infamy with like the 5000 series in particular. Whether that was them having a difficult time with adapting to like life after Polaris with like their RX 580, 480, 590 series of GPUs, and introducing this new was it even called Adrenaline back when the 5000 series came out? Because
Was it
admittedly,
Waltman?
yeah, it was called Whatman before, but like, admittedly, despite the issues with their driver support, I do like the Adrenaline software, especially when it comes to overclocking. Um, like I prefer Afterburner if I'm being totally honest for overclocking, but I do like the fact that there is like an overclocking tool built into the driver, and that was one of my first like proper initial experiences on AMD was using Adrenaline specifically, or Whatman as it was called. Um, TechLab brought up, so ran an RX 5700 XT for ages and never had a single driver issue. Again, like just as Jerry brought up, what brand and when did you get it? Because I feel like sort of like around 2020, the drivers kind of became a lot more solid, specifically, especially as they led up to RDNA 2. Um, Again, the only RDNA 2 card I tested myself was the 6650 XT. And the biggest issue I had was using it on a Z690 motherboard. But I think there must be some sort of VBIOS issue with Intel systems. But on an AMD platform, it was flawless. I had no driver issues at all, and even had like quite a lot of fun overclocking it. Let's be totally honest. Um, have you had any driver issues with 6000 series GPUs, Jerry? Because you tested an
Nope.
absolute ton of them. No.
Yeah, I've none whatsoever. I think the 16 my cousin 6900 XT, he had trouble with it for a while. Something with the automatic Windows update that kept screwing up some of his stuff. I don't know. Whenever he tried to play Call of Duty, it would
Okay.
always time him out. But personally, now every GPU I've had has run great, no issues. Um, you know what? The 6900 XT, now that I think about it, it did have some issues with Call of Duty, but Call of Duty was also going through an update at the same time. So I'm not too sure if both of those kind of coincided with one another.
Could that could be tied with Windows 11's like GPU scheduler, perhaps? I'm not sure.
Yes,
I've done much with it to be honest. Lucky
but
man.
sorry,
Sorry, go on.
99% of the time though, 99% of the time they haven't failed me, not once. And neither have the Nvidia cards. So I don't know if it's just my system is built pretty nice. Benchmarking the 3070 Ti, the EVGA one, that one got crazy results, but I just think my motherboard or my memory on my SSD was just kind of overwhelmed with all the GPUs. I kind of was swapping in and out of it. I pretty much had to
Yeah.
reset everything.
That's where DDU comes into play, and I think there's only so much
Yeah.
you can wipe at a time until you're like, right, I think kind of you need to freshen things up with a new install at a certain point.
Yeah.
But just going on here now. So Lucky Man, what's messing with most GPUs at the moment is Windows Update 22H2. I think on my main system, the system I'm currently streaming on, I'm using Windows 10, and I've purposely disabled TPM 2.0 in my BIOS so it doesn't decide to offer me Windows 11 just to just to keep it like as secure as possible because I still prefer Windows 10 if I'm being totally honest. But on my gaming system downstairs in my living room, that is on Windows 11. I have seen it pop up telling me to go and try out 22H2, but I haven't. But so seeing that now has got me a bit like, right, maybe I'll make sure I don't press yes on that update at the moment. But knowing how Windows works, it'll just do it anyway, and won't offer me the option again. But here we go. Tech Lab. Okay, so you said it was the Gigabyte Gaming OC and you got it early 2020. So I got my 5700 XT late 2019, and I feel like even with the issues with driver support, which did improve, I feel like there was some sort of like issues with like their initial batches in terms of the actual hardware itself. Now, I couldn't verify what that would be personally, but even when the driver support got to a much more reasonable standard, I still had the occasional issue. But I feel like I'm pinning that down to the actual production quality, if I'm being totally honest. So, depending when you got that Gigabyte Gaming OC 5700 XT, maybe that was from a later batch, which had a better yield, in total honesty, and a better binned GPU as well. And obviously you could capitalize on those better display drivers from AMD, and that could have helped anyway. But they did get better. What's a really random thing is the first ever video I did on the channel, where I was sat in front of the camera and talking, was me talking about my experience with 5700 XT drivers, which is a bit random. And then since then, I've done like hundreds of videos. But that was the first one I sat down and recorded myself, which is quite funny. But anyway, Twanners, I had to disable automatic driver update because Windows would uninstall Adrenaline. Okay, I've never had that before. Have you ever had Windows do that to you, Jerry?
Um, I think once or twice. I don't know if that's just Adrenaline itself. I don't know if it was the Windows update, but Adrenaline did disappear once or twice on some of the GPUs. I'm trying to remember which one it was exactly. But once I uninstalled it, reinstalled it, the driver, it just worked fine after that. Um, yeah, and I also had it on. I think it was on my 480. This doesn't count, but you know how you have the automatic update for it to like show you what new drivers are available for your GPU. It uninstalled that by itself because I remember it would always tell me when new drivers would pop in, and then out of nowhere, like I didn't get like that little tab wasn't there no more. So I don't know what happened when I installed a
Oh,
new driver. If it yeah, it just deleted that little section. So I've had things like that, and some people do complain about adrenaline disappearing sometimes. I have heard complaints like that. Never seen it personally, but I'm sure some people would say they've had problems with adrenaline. My main problem with adrenaline is sometimes it resets my defaults or all my everything back to default. Like I'll have my fan set to a certain curve, or I don't really overclock my GPUs, but some people's overclocks would go back to default.
okay.
I've had problems with that. I don't know if you really mess with that.
Well, I've been quite far removed from AMD GPUs, with the exception of the 6650 XT, because I reviewed that one back in May, June,
Yeah.
perhaps. But that's the only AMD card I've used over like the last 2 years, I think. Because I've only like in my main systems I got a 3080 Founders Edition and a 3060 Ti Gaming XC from EVGA. Um, so I'm kind of like I've only really been messing around with Nvidia most of the time the last couple of years. Uh, but whereas compared to yourself, because obviously you do a lot more GPU testing than I do, you would have tested a lot more of AMD and Nvidia as well. So I would have expected you to see more of these problems, but it's going to vary, especially because that all those GPUs are going into the same system as well. So provided that foundation is fine as is with your X570 5800X, is that the one you got?
Yeah.
Yeah,
5800X.
5800X. So
That's
provided
premium.
that foundation is sound, I think you're okay. But of course, drivers upon drivers and then DDU repeatedly can cause issues from time to time. That's kind of just a given. But I don't know. I need to test that out myself. We've kind of gone a bit of a tangent there though, because we forgot about Intel's RK770, which I think a lot of people have currently. But let's take an actual look at some benchmarks on here. So
and see, that goes to show you how important drivers are. just to just to quickly reflect
exactly,
on
was that
that.
like a 10-15 minute long discussion about drivers? Could have been.
Yeah. What other
Uh,
cons are there? Is that's where we left off?
well, I feel like that was the main issue, if we're being totally honest. But if we're also looking at
Arrived
other,
far later.
was that?
Far later than expected. It says arrived far later than expected. I think that's a huge con week because we're going on and on about that for the longest time.
Oh yeah, I feel like we kind of rinsed that for as much as it was worth, but it's here now, so we're not gonna like hold it against them any further now. But
It's here
the other
tomorrow.
thing, but exactly, but the only thing I'll get into before we take a look at these benchmarks was also, did you see the GN teardown of the A770?
No, I did not.
No, it's an absolute pain in the ass to disassemble, basically. Uh,
Nice.
so
Oh,
rather than making it easy to repair, they've used a lot of things like glue, which is not good to be
yeah, I was gonna
dealing
say
with.
I did see it. I did see it. Okay, but
Oh, you
go
did
on.
see that, yeah. So, like,
Yeah.
obviously, if you can't see any screws that are exposed on the actual backplate itself, that's kind of a bit telling to be like, right, okay, Not good. So there's issues like they use glue for the actual assembly itself. Um, there were some issues with the actual PCB design for the LED implementation on it as well, which is a bit finicky to unplug. But overall, not a very pleasant card to disassemble. So if you were looking to repair your card after a certain period of time, it would probably be a bit of a ball ache, in all honesty. Uh, but yeah, that's gonna be a very select few people who actually will disassemble their cards, because not everyone will do that. If we're being totally honest, but
I wonder how the water cooling is gonna be on it.
wouldn't that be a bit overkill for an A770?
Yeah, I don't know. Someone's gonna do it, right?
Maybe, I don't know. Or LN2 maybe, that'd be quite interesting to see. Uh, oh, lucky man on here. Well, I don't yet. It messed with my drivers. They would not even stick after DDU. Oh, okay, so it's going about the 22H2 update. So yeah, I'll probably stay clear of it. If I'm being totally honest, unless I'm a bit lackluster when it comes to my driver updates specifically, because unless there's like a new game has come out, I just kind of forget. I'm like, oh, a new game came out. I better update my drivers just in case, something like that. I ran Heaven without a driver. You get good scores, but amazing bluegrass and trees. Nice, sounds very good. Twanas, won a stress test to soften the glue. That's a good point. You could do that anyway. It'd be totally fine. But how about we take a look at some actual benchmarks for the
Hey,
A770? Because
if
this
it
is what.
gets sorry, I was gonna say if it gets too hot in your case, is your GPU gonna just fall apart? Is all the plastic casing just gonna come off?
Maybe. It could be that. You never know. Let's actually
Sorry.
take a look at some benchmarks anyway. So, because we spent so long theorizing on the actual performance of the A770 and also the A750, we can also see that in here as well. But if we see on here, uh, as they predicted, or as they claimed rather, the A770 does beat out the RTX 3060 on average when it comes to 1080p gaming performance, which is cool to see. But you'll probably would have noticed over the past couple of weeks slash months, Intel has done very little to compare themselves to AMD's RDNA 6000 series GPUs. And for good reason, because as we can see, the 6600 XT actually is pretty much toe to toe with the A770. And I think this is what you brought up as well a while ago, Jerry, wasn't it? Where you were saying, like, at this point, you're probably more better off going for either a 6600 XT or maybe even a 6600, but that is kind of trailing behind a little bit. But then the 6650 XT is faster than it on that. I find it strange that
Real,
they don't want to compare themselves to AMD, despite the fact they do that for their CPUs on a daily basis. But they can't
I'd
compete when
say
it comes to price, isn't it? So
right now they have the Gigabyte Eagle Radeon RX 6560 XT, 8 GB of VRAM for 265, which is the cheapest I've seen.
6650 XT.
Yeah, which is the cheapest I'm actually gonna post that on my YouTube today, on the community post.
That
But
is a
that's the
really
cheapest
good
I've.
deal.
Yeah, so that's about $100 cheaper than the Intel Arc A770, and it performs better. So keep that in mind. The rest of them are over $300 on Newegg, but yeah. So it's not looking too good for the Arc. But let's carry on with this chart. That's just a quick, just to shake things up a little, you know.
But I gotta say that price on the 6650 XT is really good. When I did my review of the Red Devil 6650 XT, I didn't keep that card, unfortunately, but I'm pretty sure I spent around £400 for that. So that kind of drop off just goes to show how good pricing is for last gen. And I didn't really touch on this when it came to the 4090, is how like Nvidia is like trying to like forget about the fact that the 30 series of GPUs are so readily available currently and at really good prices, which is the same thing for RX 60. I can't say it now. RX 6000 series GPUs, which is obviously a big thing that people are going to have to consider when they are looking to upgrade their systems, whether they should just go for previous gen. But yeah, that's a whole different topic for another day. But let's take a little look at some more actual titles and the performance we're looking at. So, again, we got Borderlands with its badass settings, but this time I'm guessing all these are going to be at 1080p on here. And we can see again the A770 does beat the 3060 when it comes to this title. There's not much of a difference between the A770 and the A750, which is quite interesting. So
Yeah,
like I'd be interested to like see how both of these fare in terms of availability. I need to see if this like paints a picture across the board anyway. But even still, that claim that they are beating the 3060 is holding true. But here again, again, 6600 XT, 6650 XT, which as Jerry just proved right now is going for much better pricing currently, is beating it out by a fairly significant margin. So let's take a look at another title as well, just to see on here. So Far Cry, and again, as Jerry pointed out, this is an AMD optimized title, and it's getting beaten out yet again, with the 6600 getting much closer to the A770 compared to the previous titles. But again, AMD optimized, so that's going to be a fairly significant factor to bear in when it comes to this. Flight Sim.
I was gonna tell
Uh,
you too. The RTX 3060 Ti, the Founders Edition, is $400 here at Best Buy, and so your $25 price difference. Keep that in mind as well. Maybe that'll help justify whether or not you would want to buy that.
could be
So
that.
yeah, because sorry, I just saw it on here and I just remembered that Founders Edition is that price.
Yeah.
So again, the A770 is gonna be contending with these cards at these prices. So it's kind of you got to keep that in mind a little as you go on.
It's going to be interesting to see from tomorrow, though. It's a shame we don't stream on the Wednesday, but like once the launch has happened, that's when I think things are going to be a lot more telling. In all honesty,
Yeah.
but yeah, let's carry on with the benchmarks for now, though. So Flight Sim, again, we're seeing a bit. Well, actually, it does do a lot better than the 6600 and 6650 actually in this title. Um, I could be
And it's
wrong, but I could say because it could be because of the 16 gigabytes of VRAM on that. That's probably
excellent question.
why.
And it's but supposedly at DX11 games, the Intel cards don't run good, so maybe that cancels. That shouldn't cancel out, but the
Yeah,
16
I didn't
gigabyte
think about
VRAM.
that because I know the Vulcan and DX12 is where it was kind of shining a bit better. So that's quite interesting, actually. Um, I'm guessing I've never played Flight Sim or tested it myself, but I would guess that's a more VRAM intensive title. So maybe that's where it's edging it out because the 6650 XT and 6600 XT both have 8 gigs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why. Could be that on there. Uh, Here we go. So is your favorite, Jerry? Forza Horizon 5. Am I pronouncing it correctly? It's Forza, not Forza.
I don't.
So
Forza. That,
I feel there's
Forza.
like there's a community of people who play this game that is like, oh, it's oh, I got to the oh, it's actually pronounced Forza. Just to say, I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, on here again, we're seeing this very similar. Like, well, it's pretty much neck and neck with the 6600 XT. Uh, Very small margin again, which is like this is where it's going to get interesting now, where they're not going to try and compare themselves to AMD too closely. More so because Intel's trying to come into this with this idea that they're like A770 and A750, A380 are much more competitively priced with Nvidia's budget segment of the market. Because Nvidia's like just forgotten about that. They don't really seem to care about the lower end right now. Uh, but AMD's had a bit of a maybe not a stranglehold. That might be too much of an aggressive term to use. But AMD's kind of got them beat already when it comes to like better pricing on their lower end hardware. Um, so obviously Intel doesn't have much to compare against when it comes to AMD. So that's why they're kind of focusing on Nvidia, I'm guessing, on there. But even still, we're still seeing this very close trail behind on here. And I'm guessing it's going to be pretty similar across the board. Well, I mean, actually, Horizon Zero Dawn is a bit of an exception on here because the difference on there. So if we take a look on the A770, we're averaging around 92 FPS at 1080p ultimate quality, and 6600 XT is 113. So that's a pretty sizable uplift in
Yeah.
performance. Um,
It seems it seems like the Nvidia cards perform pretty great on this game, as we saw earlier as well. Um, which is odd because you're. I think it's a PlayStation game, right?
Mhm.
Those are mostly built. You would think that'd be built for AMD too, since those are have the AMD chips in them. Either
Yeah,
way,
you would
either
think, wouldn't you?
yeah, but it seems like the Nvidia cards perform better on this than AMD and the Intel.
That's a bit. I find I have tested Horizon Zero Dawn a lot myself. Not so much. I have benchmarked it for like I did it in my GPU review for the 6650 XT, but I've tested it a lot for other like scenarios. I did a video on it when they introduced DLSS and FSR, but I also tested it quite a lot on the Steam Deck as well. But
Nice.
it's not a game I'm that. It's a bit of a difficult one to benchmark because it has a really strange issue with like shader compilation in the game. So unless you've been to a specific area in the game before shader comp has like completed, performance is all over the shop. You're getting a lot of micro stutters and just overall fairly poor performance. And in a lot of cases, your CPU is getting utilized a lot more than it should be while it's going through that shader comp process. So, but the problem being with a game like that, it's open world, so you're going to the completely different places all the time. So shader comp could be taking place over like an hour of gameplay. So I find it difficult unless you're using the built-in benchmark, where in which case that doesn't become an issue. But like maybe something tied in with that, I don't know, because like yeah, like you said yourself, Jerry, that seems a bit strange given like the performance difference between them, especially on Nvidia. So maybe that could be a reason. But again, they could be using the built-in benchmark. We don't know. Um,
I, I would. It's
yeah.
much easier.
Do you test Horizon Zero Dawn yourself?
No,
No.
I probably should.
It's a really CPU intensive title, strangely. Like,
Okay.
and it actually does
Well, it's open
scale.
world. Yeah.
It could be that, but it surprisingly
Nice.
scales fairly well with increased core counts as well. A
Nice.
bit like how Spider-Man is proven to become a really good title for testing like CPUs as well. Um,
Open world.
it's that, but it's a lot more. It's unusually intensive on your CPU, especially when you start using upscaling, which does start to hand off a bit of that load from your GPU to the CPU. Um,
More
but like,
frames.
it's that. But like, I was near maxed out when I tested it a couple of months ago. It was like
Nice.
CPU utilization was like up there. It was like there wasn't. It was on
Which
a
is not
six. It was on a 5600X, admittedly. So like, there isn't much leeway when it comes to a 6 core either way. But that's another one that's a bit like a little bit sharp. I'm quite surprised they haven't used Spider-Man in their benchmarks. Um,
yeah. You would think since it's a pretty intense game, a highly graphical one as well.
maybe because it's still quite recent and there's a lot of patches coming out over time, so it's a bit too variable. Maybe.
If you notice, a lot of people use really old games in their benchmarks, and I don't know why. Like even Red Dead
Yeah.
Redemption 2 is a pretty old game. I'm surprised we don't see Grand Theft Auto 5 on here.
I'm glad people aren't using that as much anymore. Like
Yeah,
I'm completely done with Grand Theft Auto because like I think Rockstar have kind of taken the piss a little bit. But I don't want to see GTA in a benchmark unless it's got the number 6 at the end of it. But that's a whole different thing anyway. But yeah, let's close it out for Intel Arc with Red Dead Redemption on here. So in this
Vulcan.
one, we can actually see a pretty sizable uplift compared to even the 6700 XT. So 6700 XT was averaging around 90.6 FPS, but the A770 beat it out by literally about 2 FPS, which not a massive difference, but considering that like it wasn't even that ballpark of the 6700 XT in previous titles, is a pretty telling sign of how performance is uplifted in that title specifically. Maybe because that's a Vulcan title, but again,
That's
AMD is
supposed to
like
do
that.
bad, right?
Well, no,
Intel's
it
supposed
was
to
it
do
was
bad.
Vulcan and DX12 that I think they were kind of okay in.
Oh, that it did good.
It was
Okay.
DX. Is anything prior to that is kind of like where things get a bit difficult. Um, but yeah, that's quite interesting. I think that's the first title I've seen where it's actually beaten a 6700 XT, which I wouldn't even consider it in the same like segment of like that lineup anyway. So to see it beating it out in Red Dead Redemption 2 of all titles is actually pretty cool, all things considered. But yeah, we'll leave it at that for the benchmarks for now, though. But again, the big drawback when it comes to this release now is these drivers, and unless they do sharpen up over time, that's the biggest contender. And I'm really hoping. It sounds a bit bad because of course I think you'd much prefer to test the 4090 yourself tomorrow, but well, not tomorrow, but get the car tomorrow. But if you did get the A770, I'd be really interested to have your like first-hand opinion on the performance of it and the driver support. Um, I'm
That's
guessing
what I'm not looking forward to.
you'd prefer to be getting the 4090 tomorrow though, isn't it? Let's be
I just
honest.
want the
It's be
4090.
more interesting to check out.
Yeah, I just want the 4090 because that's gonna be completely different than what I have been testing out. The I mean, obviously the Intel is gonna be different as well, but when it comes to results, it'll be in the same ballpark as these cards here, which isn't bad, but it's just with the 4090, I'm gonna see something completely new, and I might blow up my apartment, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's totally fine. Like just let your landlord know. Be like, oh yeah, if the power trips, just don't worry, it's totally fine. But
I got two extra PSUs back there just in case I need extra power. I'll literally dedicate just one to the 4090 if I got to. If I
oh
get
yeah,
the if I get a AIB, they're saying was it Zotac saying that they needed what like 1200 watt PSU supposedly.
yeah, it was Zotac recommended 1200 watts, but they
So if I get a
started they st-
Zotac one, I'll just
That's
use the
it,
750 watt PSU just for that.
just for the card itself. But like before we close out on Intel Arc itself, this kind of ties back into the discussion we're having on the RTX 4090. So what I'll do, I'll end the poll, and we can take a little look at these results from when we were talking about the actual like the resolution people are gaming at. Uh, this way has popped up on here now. So earlier in the stream, we actually put up a poll to say what resolution are you gaming at, because we said for a GPU like the 4090, that is a 4K card, and you need to be like able to utilize that in that regard. But again, a lot less people are going to be gaming at 4K, and as our poll has shown, surprisingly, only 8% are playing at 144p. I want to hear from you guys. No,
How are they watching this stream?
that must have been a meme vote, but either way. But the rest of these results are pretty interesting. So we can see on here only 16% currently gaming at 4K, which I am not surprised at. That lines up with what I would usually expect. 1440p, 33%, and 1080p, 41%. So that does line up fairly well with what I would have expected. So if we got a lot of people that are more gaming at 1080p, all things considered, maybe this is where the A770 will be much more of a better value proposition. But again, these drivers just need to be there. And unless you're willing to be an early adopter and deal with these growing pains, it's a bit of a tough ask, if we're being totally honest. What would you make of those results, Jerry?
I need to start testing in 144p more often so to help out the crowd.
Did you see someone actually tested Horizon Zero Dawn at like might have been 144p? I'm gonna try
That's
and find this
terrible.
now. It actually lets you run it at that resolution, like that low. I want to try and find this now. Let's
That's
have a look.
hilarious. Imagine watching the stream. That's a real tech flashback right there. I just put in the chat. Would you guys be more interested in me getting a 4090 or a A770? I'm curious to see what people would like for me to test. Either way, you guys kind of want to know my strategy when it comes to trying to get these cards that are kind of hard to get, or not hard to get, but in demand. I'm assuming you guys all know anyways, but normally, let's just say, well, I'll talk to you, Tech Lab. You, I'm not sure if there's a certain, if you want to get the limited edition, if there's a certain model you want to get, but let's just say for the 4090, I'm not really, I just want to get one. It doesn't matter what brand, what AIB. Obviously, I want the FE, but I know that's gonna sell out the fastest. But I'll have 5 different I'll have 5 different tabs open, and I'll just keep refreshing each one until it says add to cart. Once it goes up online, pretty much at 6 o'clock. At that time, the servers usually crash, and they all take forever to reload. And then I just keep reloading it until it says sold out or it's in my cart. And even then, once it's in your cart, don't like I said, you just keep going. Don't even try to like whatever one's in your cart. Don't try to wait for another one. Just go complete the process and get whatever card you have. Because if you try to wait and see if you can get a different one, the one you have might sell out, and then the other ones might sell out, and then you're just screwed out of luck. Um, but if you're interested only in a particular model, then just keep that tab open and just keep refreshing it and adding to cart until you get it. And Best Buy, there's a certain way to do it as well, but you guys don't have Best Buy, so you guys don't care about that.
Well, we'll have to compare when it comes to like how the scam release goes. Sorry, I've been completely distracted by this thing. It wasn't 144p for Horizon Zero Dawn. It was 72p.
Okay, even better.
So if you want to make your eyes bleed, then you you can do that if you wanted to. But
Is that a
yeah,
little Tamagotchi?
yeah, it's like he's down there. It's worse than a Game Boy itself. But yeah, we'll have to compare how it's looking in the UK when both the A770 and the 4090 comes out. But yeah, I feel there's a lot more to discuss when it comes to the 4090. But again, it's the cost investment in itself anyway. But I've got my fingers crossed for you that you get either card, if being totally honest. But I'm always happy to see something come out. I'm happy to see when any top 3 entertainment videos come out. But like, I've got my fingers crossed for either of those cards, if I'm being totally honest. But
And the
yeah.
4090, I feel will probably draw more attention to my channel than the Intel ones would.
That's probably true. I would say. I think if you get a lot more clicks for a 4090 video.
Yeah, so.
But,
And then with that, we'll have a good amount of people telling me that I don't do a thorough enough job.
and this
So,
comes from someone with like a 1 subscriber channel or something like that.
yeah,
Usually, something like
yeah, that's
that.
fine. But it's just
So,
funny.
so yeah, you clearly know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But
but,
mostly it's more like 90% positivity. It's just funny the 10% that are negative is pretty crazy.
yeah, well, I think that's the kind of thing you have to contend with when it comes to YouTube in itself. I had another like classic YouTube comment on one of my videos the other day. Someone said I looked like the kid from Charlie Bit My Finger. I was like, okay, I haven't had that one before, but never mind. But what can you do? That's the part of the game. All things considered, I have had worse comments, but no, I don't care. I don't really give two shits.
Yeah.
But is there anything you wanted to close things out with, Jerry? I think we've been going on for quite some time, all things
Yeah.
considered.
We could talk about the YouTube 4K premium. We just go on that real quick.
Oh, of course, yeah, I completely forgot. So what have you been hearing regarding this? I didn't have like an article to pick up on this, but I feel like a lot of people are discussing this thing where they're considering paywall in 4K resolution. What have been your thoughts on it?
I think that's terrible. Um, because my videos come out in 4K 60 frames, and I want the people to be able to enjoy it in their full 4K. Like Tech Lab, how is he gonna watch my videos in 4K 60 frames on his TV if he has to pay for it? No one's gonna pay for
Exactly.
my channel. You
Well, I
know?
would. You know.
Yeah, okay. But I think it's dumb. I think I have a pretty good point of view in this because I have YouTube Premium. And I also, like I said, I record in 4K 60. So not only am I a consumer, but I'm also the one that gives out the product. And the main thing I use YouTube Premium for is to listen to stuff with the screen off, which is
Yeah, that's
which
that's
is
that's
literally,
same as me. Yeah.
which is literally quite the opposite of what they're trying to bargain premium for.
I
And
think for sorry, go on.
I would say, and I assume that they were talking about 4K on like their YouTube TV. I thought like maybe you had to pay an extra tier to get premium 4K channels on there, but I'm not too
Okay.
sure. That's what I
Well,
assumed.
there's nothing definitive on it yet, though, which is the thing that we have to bear in mind. So I've kind of been fairly uh, uncommitted, if that's the right word, to like having a definitive thought on it. But like the one thing I wanted to think about was I know I saw something about like uh, Linus had like a typically controversial opinion regarding 4K content being paywalled. And that was more in regards to the actual overhead cost of hosting 4K content itself, which I could sort of get on board with. But then, should I say? So for myself, I record 4K 30 videos, and as a YouTube partner, if people were getting paywalled to watch content in 4K, if someone's watching my content in 4K, does that mean that I should get more of a significant cut depending on the cost of that user watching the video? Could be things like that, because obviously, does that mean that is that kickback going back into like into creators? We don't know. So that's one side of looking at it. But again, I still like to be able to upload in as high as resolution as possible, because even downscaling that to 1080p, that does still improve the quality at that resolution either way. But where does this stop? Because could they then like take 1440p away from you, and then like where do they stop? And I feel like they must have been testing the waters, because I think we mentioned about the fact that 480p is like the default on mobile, and it really annoys me. And I would like every time it pops up, I'm like, right, I'll at least chuck it up to 1080p if I'm like watching a video on my phone, just to like have that quality up there. But apparently they did a poll of the amount of people who actually were changing from 480p, which they defaulted to, up to a higher resolution, and it was something like 1% of users would change the resolution, which I thought was crazy.
Yeah, that is wild.
It's like, surely I can't be the only like in that really
Yeah,
minor amount of people that like were not
that
happy with really low resolution on their mobile phone.
everyone watching the stream right now are the only people that do it, is what they're saying.
Must be,
Because
yeah.
yeah, that's wild. Nah, hell's no, man. I can't. Dude, once I see it start blurring, I'm like, oh nah, go up. And it's usually because supposedly because the connection. But I usually change it back up and it streams fine. And I'm like, what is this? Why is this doing this? It's like my adrenaline settings just randomly default sometimes to 480p. It's like
So yeah.
why?
But maybe that's coming from like because we're PC gamers. We're a lot more likely to pick up on that lower resolution compared to the average
my
person.
my
Like,
phone screen is 120 hertz.
all right, no need to show off. Some of us stuck.
No, I know. I just
People are stuck on our 60 hertz phones. You know,
yeah,
what's
and
the
it's
point?
crazy. It's crazy because I can see the difference and like no one else can see it. And I'm sure you'd be able to tell, and everyone else in this channel would be able to tell, but to like the normal eye, they're just like, nah. I'm like, look how smooth the scrolling looks. It's just so I like higher refresh rates. I like higher image quality. And if we're already getting it for free, I don't want it taken away. And as someone that enjoys YouTube videos, don't take it away from me. As someone that makes videos for people, don't take it away from them because shit, we pay a lot for this equipment.
Exactly.
So
But of course, we do have to bear in mind there's nothing like too official coming out regarding this. So until then, my opinion is fairly reserved in all honesty. But you never know. Google do like to try all these kinds of things. So if they were the case where they did try and like start testing out 4K as a like YouTube Premium product, I wouldn't be too surprised. In all honesty,
it'd
but
be a terrible time to do it right now with them competing with Twitch and Twitch on their downfall and
yeah,
YouTube getting
Twitch is in a
their scale up.
really bad state of affairs currently. So I think that like YouTube needs to be positioning themselves as like the better alternative, especially with a lot of they had a lot of Twitch streamers saying, "Oh no, we're jumping ship. We're going over to YouTube streaming," and then I think a few of them kind of like did not do really commit to that anyway. But if now's the time to make your platform more appealing than the other, I think now is exactly the time. Especially when you got Twitch streamers like breaking their backs at TwitchCon and stuff
I
like
was about
that.
to say, if you're gonna jump ship, make sure the foam pit that's under it is pretty deep.
If you're gonna jump ship, make sure it's not concrete and yeah.
Yeah, 6 foot deep foam pit. But
But
yeah, I think we're good.
yeah, is there anything before we head out? Is there anything you wanted to close out with, Jerry?
Good luck to whoever tries to get a new GPU, whether it be the new 4090, the Intel ones, are just a good deal on a good card.
I think we stand by that. That is the message of this entire stream. Is just good luck. Maybe not with just hardware, just good luck in general. Good luck with my
Good luck
MOT
in life.
tomorrow, exactly. You know, just
Yeah.
fingers crossed. I'll have a car to drive by the end of the week that is legal for the road, but you never know. But
You could drive a car or get a 4090. It's up to you.
I was thinking about this. I was like, I think these. Well, I bought my car for £800. I'm not one to spend much on my cars, so I'd prefer to spend more on computers. In all honesty, but what can you do? Yeah. So before we head out, just to plug your stream in later today, Jerry.
I'll be playing Overwatch 2. Probably. Yeah, we'll see. Servers should be fine. I might have to go into the Asia servers if anything that worked out. But I'll let Twiners is gonna be playing, and I'll ask my cousin if he wants to play too. Yeah, we'll be doing that. I probably won't have a tech video this week. I might. I won't. I might not. We'll see. Just because I have been going at it pretty strong. My wallet and my brain need to rest a little bit.
It's always a good thing to do. I like to do that myself. Like it's difficult to be like that because you're like, oh shit, if I don't upload a video this week, will people still be there? And like YouTube does kind of put that pressure on you. But I think it's a lot more important to prioritize your own self, like if at certain times. And it's like it's not the end of the world. I've skipped weeks before and it hasn't been a problem. And like it might be like a bit of a dip. It's not the end of the world.
Hey, you know it's funny too. Some people comment on one of my 3060 videos. They're like, "Oh, I thought you'd have a lot more 3060s to compare this to." It's like, well, yeah, excuse me, bro. That I don't got all this money or I don't got no sponsors, man. It's like I feel like I have enough enough to keep you guys happy.
And I feel like you've got more cars than the average guy though on your channel. So all things considered, you're doing pretty well.
And then some people too, they're like, "How come you don't test this game, or how come you don't test that game, or this application?" I'm like, "Well, those cost like $60 per game. I can't afford every brand new game. It's either the GPU or the game, and let me know what you want reviewed."
You can't please everyone. I think that's the point, isn't
Yeah.
it? So, but yeah,
it's fine.
So that's gonna be it for Tech Flashback. If you enjoyed the stream, then please feel free to like and subscribe to both myself and Jerry. And also, if you would like to talk with even myself and Jerry, you can also join the PC Jack and Top 3 Entertainment Discord servers. Links for both of those are in the video description. And if you'd like to support us even further, you can also send in super chats whenever you want, or you can even support us on Patreon. Again, all of that is in the video description. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. And as usual, roll out that intro that we always forget to roll at the beginning of the stream, because I think it's just
outro.
It's just going to be the outro for now, though, so I'm going to let it go for now. And maybe we'll just make that a thing where we only have it at the end, but it's totally fine, though. But thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.